EV company NIO sold 160,000 electric cars worldwide in 2023. This may be the most talked about car manufacturer in the world that it sold less than 200,000 cars. Anyway, here's what NIO did in 2023, and here's what we can expect from 2024. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. NIO has big plans for 2024. That said, they did have big plans for 2023. In 2023, they had a lot of financial issues, which weren't really reported on that much by the media because the media don't talk about Chinese car companies all that much. But in China, this was well-known news. NIO had massive financial problems in 2023. It did receive billions of dollars of investment from outside individuals and companies. But NIO wasn't happy with this. They didn't want this to happen. They didn't want to give away part of their company, but they didn't really have a choice. They had to also scale back their spending. They were spending like crazy. I mentioned this a number of times, and I was called a NIO hater because I mentioned this, but it's simply just reporting the facts, guys. That's what I do on this channel. I try to report the facts as much as I can. If you hate that, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. So what did NIO do in terms of actual deliveries compared to previous years? For one, it may come as a surprise to some people that NIO only delivered 160,000 EVs worldwide. However, that was a bit better than what they did in 2022. In 2022, they delivered 122,000. The previous year, 91,000. The year before that, 43,000. And 2019, 20,565. In 2018, they delivered 11,000 cars. So you can see here, NIO's been around now for, well, 6 years, or you could say nearly 7 years. Are its deliveries what we expected? They're not. NIO's stock price crashed precipitously in 2023. A lot of this was due to the fact that their deliveries were much, much lower than was expected. As you can see, NIO's deliveries grew in 2023, but not really by that much. Its deliveries increased by 30.7% or 30.666% to be exact versus 2012, which is, not too bad. But we're coming from a fairly small base here. So if you were to say, for example, Honda increased its deliveries, which it didn't, by the way, by 31 or by 36%, then you'd be thinking, wow, that's amazing. Now this number was 30.7%, and that's approximately what Honda lost in China. Honda's sales have precipitously declined. And why is that? Well, it's because of companies like BYD. Now, we might be thinking to ourselves, well, NIO are about to explode. They're on the edge. They're about to sell a lot of cars. But the thing is, well, maybe not. If you have a look at some of their rivals, such as new EV companies, which are actually now outselling NIO and have only been around for a matter of months, I suggest NIO is not a likely big growth story next year. You never know. 2024, they plan on having a cheaper EV brand. They plan on selling cheaper EVs in order to, take advantage of that side of the market. Could this work for them? It could, but the problem is consumers may not consider them to be NIO EVs. And NIO have a good name in China. People consider them to be good cars. But if they have a new brand, do people even think of them as being NIO? I don't know. However, one thing NIO did that was, I think, impressive was they bought out their manufacturing partner. NIO didn't make most of its cars in 2023. Its partner, JAC, made those cars, but it bought the factory that those cars are made in. So now it does own its own factory, which is a good thing. And it's also built a second factory elsewhere in a different location to manufacture different cars. Now, considering they only sold 160,000 cars, you'd probably be surprised to learn they have many different models. NIO currently sells the ES8, the ES7, the ES6, the EC7, the EC6, the ET7, the ET5, and the ET5 Touring. The first 5 of those are SUVs, and the last 3 are sedans, or one is a wagon. Of course, the ET5 Touring is a wagon. The company has just unveiled its ET9 flagship, which is maybe the most impressive electric car that's ever been unveiled. Unfortunately, it's a prototype at this stage, and it's not likely to come out until the end of 2024 or maybe even early 2025. But as you can see, this now means that NIO has 8 different electric cars on sale today. 8 different cars Considering only 160,000 sales for the entire year, I think they make too many different models. They're stretched too thin. And that's the key reason why NIO, in my belief, don't make a profit. Of course, they're not alone here. Almost no one makes a profit. Really only BYD and Tesla make a profit selling EVs. Maybe Porsche as well. That said, all of that may sound like I'm not being particularly positive, and well, NIO, my big issue with them is simply they love spending money. Anytime they can spend, they spend like crazy. They build luxury NIO houses all around the world. They have battery swapping stations. Any kind of tech that you can think of, they have it. They want it. They want everything. And I think sometimes you've got to do things step by step. However, when it comes to their deliveries, they have actually done really well over the past few months versus where they were doing, where they're at for the first 6 months of the year. NIO delivered 50,000 vehicles in the fourth quarter. So for those 3 months, October, November, December, 50,000 vehicles. Pretty good growth for the company. Considering they delivered 160,000 for the whole year, 50,000 for one quarter was quite a good result. But that said, China is very seasonal. EV sales for the first 3 months of the year are minuscule. That's historical for China versus the last 3 months of the year. So even though BYD have technically surpassed Tesla when it comes to EV sales for the third quarter of 2023, it's very unlikely that BYD will actually outsell Tesla for the first quarter of 2024 because more than 90% of BYD sales are in China. Cyclical sales here. Of course, like I said, January, February, and March are very slow sales months. If NIO were to deliver similar numbers in January, February, and March to what they did in October, November, and December, then we'd be looking at them and saying, wow, this is a true growth story. The reality is here that NIO's third quarter this year was their best quarter. They delivered more cars. In fact, they nearly delivered 60,000 cars in the third quarter versus 50,000 in the fourth quarter. What does this mean? Well, NIO's deliveries in the fourth quarter of 2023 were down 9.7% versus their 2022. So realistically, NIO is still having some significant growth pains. I think their cars are excellent. Guys, if someone was to tell me, hey, I just bought a new NIO electric car, I'd say, congratulations, you bought a really good car. But will they really be around in 2030? Here's the thing. There's nearly 80 electric car companies in China. That's just the Chinese ones, let alone legacy automakers who are struggling and trying to ramp up their EV sales as well. But when you look at companies like BYD, when you look at some of the other new electric car companies that are beginning to sell huge numbers of EVs, GAC's Aion division, they are in fact selling as many EVs as NIO in a single month versus what NIO sells in 3 months. And they're selling premium electric cars as well. NIO are going to have a very tough time of it in 2024. I do not recommend investing in a company like this. If you want to invest in the stock market in EVs, probably BYD would be a much safer bet. However, realistically here, the Chinese car market is fascinating. EV sales in China have rocketed up. They've now hit 37%. And that's EV only. That number will definitely grow in 2024. But if the majority, in fact, if 90% or more of your sales are in China, and there's 79 other car companies that you're competing against, that's a tough market. And I wouldn't want to be in that position myself. What are your thoughts? Thanks for watching.